Afternoon. Please be upstanding for the Chair of Stratford District Council, Councillor Jenny Fradgley. Thank you.
For a moment. I would like to introduce May I start again, councillors? Thank you, members. Can I ask you to remain standing for a moment, please? I would like to introduce Reverend Craig Grocott to lead us in a thought before today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jenny. Councillors, please be seated for a moment. Not that I'm going to talk for a long time, but please do. I am certainly not going to talk for a long time. It's wonderful to be here and serving as your chaplain, Jenny, for this next year. What an extraordinary 4 days we've all just experienced. And I was particularly struck as I watched the outgoing Prime Minister go to the palace and then the new Prime Minister make their way to see the King, just how brutal the exchange of power in this country actually is. Power that has changed hands. And that word power can be defined, of course, in many different ways, can't it? Certainly, amongst the definitions of power, perhaps words like control or authority or influence over others certainly come within those definitions. I have power that I recognise as a vicar and as a parish priest. And you, of course, as elective councillors and representatives, certainly have significant power as well. But how is power best to be used? Well, we see when power is misused, and we all see when power is abused. And I'm sure we've all been victims and even sadly at times perpetrators of the shadow side of power. But it seems to me that all we who hold and exercise power in different ways, what comes with that power comes great responsibility on our shoulders as well. To use these gifts that we have, the power that we have, to serve, to liberate, and to empower those who I would call the least, the last, and the lost. So may we all, with whatever power we have, understand and recognise in each one of us the great privilege and the great position we've all been given as a gift. And may we each, myself included, be able to say, in the words that Jesus said, that I've not come to be served, but to serve. I'm just going to end with a brief prayer. Dear God, bless this meeting of the District Council. Bless our agenda. Bless our thinking. Bless our speaking. Bless our decision-making and our use of power. And we pray that we would use that all and offer this day to the benefit of all we seek to serve. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now seated, but I declare this meeting open. Welcome to this full council meeting. Councillors, when addressing the meeting, please stand and ensure your microphone is switched on and that you speak directly into the microphone so that it's picked up via the live audio feed. When you've finished addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. David, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Bromwich, Curtis, Gist, Parry, Pertigella, Skinner and Wally Hoggins. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Do any members or officers have any declarations of interest on items on the agenda? No, thank you. So we move on to item 3 on the agenda. I now seek a proposer and a seconder for the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of April 2024 and the minutes for the annual council meeting held on the 15th of May 2024. May I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Alcock. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Roth. The minutes. Do we agree the minutes? Thank you. Item 4, announcements. I have a little display to please everybody, I hope, of the things that my husband, Councillor Ian Fradgley, and myself have been doing on behalf of the council. We went to the civic dinner of the Stratford mayor making. We went to the mayor making of Ulster and Whitnash. And we had a fantastic evening at the Forest of England, where we went to walk around that forest for a short period. It was stunning, and they are really hoping to plant many more millions of trees. And I hope that we shall find in our hearts, in our pockets as well, to actually help plant trees across the Midlands. Thank you. I now invite the leader, we now move on to announcements. I now invite the leader, Councillor Susan Junin, to make any announcements.
Thank you very much indeed. I've had quite an interesting time this last month, apart from being involved in the general election, obviously. But I had a really enjoyable time at the Rail Life Primary Engineer Challenge. I was invited to be part of a team of potential young engineers of the future. And thank goodness I was part of the winning team, which was really, really rather nice. Because to be able to see some of their faces when when it was announced that they'd won was absolutely fantastic. These are the young people that will be our future in this country. I was also at the Heart of England Forest event and enjoyed that. I had attended the Stratford Business Growth event at Ulscott and was pleased to see a good turnout of local businesses. And it was a pleasure to host a work experience visitor by a sixth form student from Ulster Grammar School and meet with another work experience student who was working at the District Council. And this week it was also a pleasure to meet several people who were instrumental in the development of the Roman Museum in Ulster, including, and that this was a pure pleasure to me, the former Chief Executive of Stratford District Council, Ian Prosser. I don't know if any of you remember him, but he does send his regards to the District Council. Other engagements have included the annual West Midlands Combined Authority Board meeting in Wolverhampton. And then on the 2nd of July, I attended the Local Government Association Assembly. And because of the general election, this was a virtual meeting. It's a formal annual meeting, similar to the council AGM, on this occasion, all it covered was the formal business, such as the appointment of office holders of the association. And then July the 4th saw the general election take place. And I'd like to put it on record, my thanks to the District Council staff for their conduct of the elections. It was very well run. Everyone was professional and pleasant throughout the long day and night. And I hope you will all join with me in putting that on record for the council, to the council staff. Thank you.
I now invite the Chief Executive, David Buckland, to make any announcements.
Thank you, Jenny. I think the leader stole a bit of my thunder. We obviously held the general election count and the whole of the election for the Stratford-on-Avon constituency Thursday into Friday. I wanted to say a massive, massive thank you to everybody that was involved. The core elections team, headed by Mesa, Alice, Olivia, Suzanne and Lauren. Crikey, I nearly forgot Lauren. They've done a phenomenal job in really what is a 6-month project delivered in 6 weeks. But also to the army of staff that we have to recruit to man all of the polling stations, we're gender neutral, to provide staff for all of the polling stations, the count, the postal vote count opening. It's a huge operation, and I just wanted to say thank you again to everybody that was involved in that election. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Item 5, passing of former councillors Bill McCarthy and Jane Harrison. I refer to the death of former councillor Bill McCarthy, district councillor from 1990 to 2004, and chair of the council from the year 2000-2001. Do any members wish to address the council?
Thank you, Chair. I first met Bill when I was returned to council in 2002 and have great memories of him. Bill was a resident of Studley since the age of 5, and he was highly respected in Studley within the community and within his colleagues here at council. He was always kind and courteous. He was a true gentleman.
Councillor Junid.
Yes, Councillor McCarthy became a councillor just 1 year before I became a councillor in 1991. He was appointed in 1990. And between 1991 and 2000, we worked together on several working groups, one of which was to set up and find a new home for the district council officers, which at that time was being planned to be adjacent to the current train station in Stratford, which it does take us back some years. He was a committed and well-liked councillor, and my condolences go to his family, who I knew at the time. So thank you very much indeed for remembering Councillor Bill McCarthy.
I'd like to move the following: that the council notes with regret the death of former councillor Bill McCarthy and extends its sympathy to his family and friends in their loss. I now refer to the death of former district councillor Jane Harrison, who represented Claverden Ward from 2002 to 2008. Do any members wish to address the council? Councillor Organ.
Thank you, Chair. Jane, she was a warm and outgoing person with a great sense of humour, mainly ironic and always witty. A dear friend and valued colleague, she was deeply committed to her husband David and her family at home, and dedicated to her residents here in the council chamber. In keeping with her inimitable style and humour, David related to me that Jane's last words to him were, "Now don't rush to follow me."
I forgot the red light, yes. I didn't know Jane very well, but the last period, the 8 years that I was on the council before, we were on at that same time. She was a charming lady, and I'd just like to echo and thank the words of somebody that knew her better from Councillor Organ. So it's very much regretted the passing of Jane.
Thank you, councillors. I'd like to move the following: that the council notes with regret the death of former councillor Jane Harrison and extends its sympathy to her family and friends in their loss. Move on to item 6, public participation. In accordance with the council's constitution, questions may only be asked when received by the head of paid service 2 clear days before the day of the meeting. Item 6 on the agenda is public participation. We have received 1 question from the public. Mr. Tomlinson, please approach the table. Mr. Tomlinson here? Thank you. If you'd like to come forward and sit at the table there by the microphone. Thank you. You may ask one supplementary question and we'll have 3 minutes to speak on this.
I apologise if my voice is not totally audible. 2 days ago, I couldn't speak at all. I'm concerned that the response to my question infers that the entire responsibility for a risk assessment of the possibility of the collapse of the Clopton Bridge following catastrophic rainfall would fall on the County Council. The accompanying economic impact would imply that the District Council is best positioned to assess the effect on the town and that therefore the risk assessment should be a joint exercise. Thank you.
Your question is?
That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Grocott, would you like to reply, please?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr Tomlinson, for your question and your concern about the emergency contingent for any damage to the Clopton Bridge in the case of any flooding in the area. Stratford District Council has the responsibility of emergency planning, but it's very much supplementary to other bodies. Now, the bridge itself comes under the authority of the County Council, but we would be responsible for supplementary actions in the case of emergency, working along the Warwickshire, plan, sorry, the Warwickshire, No. Sorry. Anyway, but we would be, thank you. We would be concentrating on the secondary issues in an emergency, such as moving people from housing into safe centres where they could be safe from any weather, but also coordinating to make sure that any risks to local support is coordinated. So, although I understand what you're saying, our risk assessments cover that, but just not specifically what goes on for the Clopton Bridge, if that's acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Tomlinson. Thank you. Item 7. Beaudesert and Henley-in-Arden Neighbourhood Development Plan. Item 7 on the agenda is Beaudesert Henley-in-Arden Neighbourhood Development Plan. I invite Councillor Coucher to introduce this report.
Chair, we were very keen to see all of our communities coming forward with their own neighbourhood plans, and I know that Henley has put an awful lot of effort into producing their neighbourhood plan, and they've produced a very satisfactory plan which has gone forward for consultation and has been, I think, heavily supported in terms of support for the plan. And so, therefore, I would like to move the recommendation which you have on your papers that the Beaudesert and Henley-in-Arden Neighbourhood Development Plan be adopted with immediate effect, with the consequences that it becomes part of the development plan for Stratford-on-Avon district.
May I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Rice. Would any councillor like to speak on this issue? Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I think Henley-in-Arden neighbourhood plan is a case study of the difficulties local communities have in developing these plans. They rely on local volunteers with little or no expertise of planning, and they often take a long time. Henley has taken 12 years to get to this stage, and interrupted by COVID, and latterly with paid for professional help with a government grant. It finally reached referendum stage, and as my colleague just pointed out, it has had the highest turnout of any referendum in the district, although I have been asked to point out so far, and 36.5% supported the plan. Sorry, there was the turnout of which 90% supported the plan, which I think is an excellent result, and I commend the plan to my colleagues. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? In that case, are we all in agreement? Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda, Hampton Lucy Neighbourhood Development Plan. I invite Councillor Coucher to introduce this report.
When I started my planning career, producing a local plan was a relatively simple operation and undertaken locally and adopted by the council. Now, because we have to do everything in accordance with law, because everything is challenged these days in the courts, producing a local plan is a very complicated process, and producing a neighbourhood plan puts great pressure, particularly on small communities smaller communities like Hampton Lucy. And I want to pay tribute to those in Hampton Lucy who have produced their own neighbourhood plan, which quite clearly shows how they wish to see their village develop for the future, what needs to be protected and what opportunities there are for the future. And once again, just like Henley, it's taken a long time, but it's a very good document and one that I would certainly advocate that we support. Once again, it has overwhelming local support from those that came out to vote for it. And so therefore I would recommend to this council again that the Hampton Lucy Neighbourhood Development Plan be adopted with immediate effect, with the consequence it becomes part of the development plan for Stratford-on-Avon district. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shenton, would you like to stand and speak to the issue?
It is now, right. We have some representatives from Hampton Lucy here, Councillor Matthews, I know he's just waved, this represents a milestone for the village. I'm speaking on behalf of Anne Parry, Councillor Parry, on this. It's been ably led by the PC, Councillor Matthews, Alex Jones and the clerk, John Dunkerton. And it's been 8 years in getting to this stage. One of the meetings during in an anecdote that Councillor Matthews gave me just before we came in, was that one of the meetings during the COVID era was held under a tree, which was brilliant, and luckily it was a nice warm day, so they had made the best of that. It aims to make the parish of Hampton Lucy an even better place than it is now for the benefit of its residents, visitors and future generations. The parish council promoted the plan for the benefit of residents following the work of a steering group up until 2020, when it was taken in-house. As Councillor Coucher has indicated, local plans are the key to delivering sustainable development, reflecting the vision and aspirations of local communities. And the benefit of NDPs, or neighbourhood development plans, can't be underestimated or understated. It's been an opportunity for people living in the village to decide how the village should evolve in the years up to 2031, and contains a vision for the future of Hampton Lucy. At the referendum on the 30th of May, there were 96 yes votes to 11 no, so as Councillor Coucher said, a resounding yes for it, and the ballot generated a 26.7% turnout, not quite as good as Henley-in-Arden, but still acceptable. So therefore, I congratulate Hampton Lucy, the councillors and everybody involved, and there were more than the 3 people involved in this. There were another 8 or so people at various points. I congratulate them and recommend the adoption of this NDP. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shintron. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Parker.
Yes, I just wanted to say very briefly, I think we know what's involved in creating an NDP, so I'm not going to bore everyone with that. But what I would say is I did have the privilege, because before the boundary changes, Hampton Lucy fell within the purview of the Snitterfield area that I was hoping to cover after the election. So I had the privilege of attending some of the meetings, parish council meetings, and I thought they were a fabulous crew doing an excellent job. And so this is just really nice to see this come to fruition, because I knew it was hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we all in agreement? Item 9 on the agenda. Item 9 is minute 36 from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 31st of May 2024 regarding the Task and Finish Group on Housing Associations. I invite Councillor Crump to introduce this report as chair of this committee.
Oh, yeah, red lights come on. Thank you, Councillor Fradley. This has been going on for a significant amount of time. And to echo Councillor June and Mr Buckland thanking staff for their hard work on the elections, again, I think this has almost got to electoral standards in terms of the amount of meetings and the amount of work that the Democratic Services officers, particularly Mr Allison, Howard, thank you very much, who's been a guidance. Is the phrase herding cats springs to mind, and I'm probably one of those, and I'm looking at 2 other people who straight across the road from me who were also members of the scrutiny panel. So I think the Task and Finish Group has worked really, really hard on this. We've had evidence and information from other councillors who've got specialist interest in that, particularly Councillor Junid and Councillor Alcott, who came on board and had some interesting examples from her area, which, yeah, using the cat analogy, if people would have heard them, they would have had kittens. Sorry about that. I won't be pussing a footy around anymore. No, come on, stop it. I can see the claws coming out from over that. No, seriously, we worked really well. We worked on service standards, and whilst the language in those service standards could have probably been more direct, we felt it more pertinent to use a moderate tone, and we've used that on purpose to try and get as much cooperation with the registered social landlords, because deep down we've got no legal authority over the housing associations, so we try and get participation by agreement, and we think we've got lots of information from them, especially answering to the survey that the Task and Finish Group came up with, and that was almost like War and Peace as well, but some really positive questions. And we felt the ongoing basis of this work needs to be reflected with a housing associations working group that be established to meet on a quarterly basis. There are 4 recommendations, Madam Chair, and I recommend them to the council, and thank everybody for their cooperation and help with this particularly challenging notice of motion that we were able and happy to help the council with. Thank you.
Crump. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Littlewood, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm very pleased to second this motion. What I would like to add is that this is a great start to a work which affects a lot of our residents, and this is only the beginning, and I think this council should realise that it's an ongoing project. As has already been said by Councillor Crump, we don't have any legal powers to enforce, but we can take a watching brief and we can encourage and publicise as necessary. So I'm very happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Littlewood. Do any members wish to comment on this? Councillor Juned.
Yes, the actual motion originally was put forward on the 12th of December 2022. And it was proposed by Councillor Curtis and seconded by Councillor Rolfe. It took 18 months, actually, for this report to come forward and the recommendations, so quite a lengthy time. I am a councillor who represents a ward with a significant number of properties owned by housing associations and have a heavy casework load as a result of the maintenance issues, and I did feed into some of those casework into that working group. Some of the casework involves damp and mould as well as boiler breakdowns. Although I am somewhat underwhelmed by the report, I do have to accept that we have to foster positive relationships and work collaboratively with housing associations. Housing associations are required to cooperate with local authorities, and I hope that they will do so and even more so after ongoing. We must ensure that our residents' concerns are properly addressed, and we must stand up for better conditions because it is simply not acceptable for families to live with damp and mould in their homes. As well as regular meetings with the housing associations, which is a recommendation, I would like to emphasise that one of the recommendations, which is that the mechanisms available to make complaints and seek further actions where appropriate, must become a routine part of the training made available to councillors, because there are steps that can be made available that can be taken, including up to the social ombudsman, but you do need to go through proper procedures in order to be able to make proper use of that route. I would also hope that we could make cases on behalf of the housing associations to Parliament to support improvements and funding to housing associations to make sure that the maintenance that is done on behalf of our residents is properly done, up to date, and that I no longer have to be able to take compensation claims against housing associations in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Juned. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. The need for improving our relationship with housing associations has been driven also by two external pressures. Firstly, local authorities have hardly any influence on the choice of which provider of social housing comes into the area. The choice is largely made by developers. Secondly, many of the larger housing associations are driven by business efficiency rather than by customer service, taking on more and more stock over greater and greater areas of the country. I commend the approach of this report to the Council. Could I also thank the staff involved, especially Howard Allison. I'm a fan of the basic structure of the housing association. The purpose is to manage to generate a surplus which is then reinvested into the service. If water companies were structured in the same way, I suspect we'd have cleaner rivers.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. No more? Councillor Cole.
Yes, it's working. Thank you. I'd like to agree with my colleagues that definitely it's an issue to be addressed. My concerns perhaps with the report are that we don't duplicate work or take work that is already in progress and tweak it for our use, that we try to maintain the effectiveness of information and submissions to the Council that are already being done. It is very easy to increase an administrative burden both on our staff here and on those in housing associations. And I do feel some of this work could be better spent actually trotting out and making sure the drains are being fixed, that we get a nice report coming to the Council. So I would be concerned to ensure that we don't duplicate effort, that we ensure that we are enabling our housing associations to really focus on the work that we want done, which is that the maintenance is done properly and that the communication between them and ourselves is effective and timely. I certainly know that we have been working on improving our communications, and we have seen some results in the last year where our representations to the housing associations have resulted in additional staffing being brought in on their side, some of the bigger housing associations, in order to make sure that our representations as councillors are going to the right people in a timely manner. Yes, so that's pretty much it. You know, let us make sure that these organisations that have additional funding problems that we are all aware of in many aspects of public services today, that we don't add to those burdens, then what we're doing is getting out good, timely work that isn't making a burden on them. Thank you.
Cole, are we all agreed on the recommendation? Agreed. Thank you. We now move on to item 10. On the agenda is minute 44 from the Cabinet meeting held on the 3rd of June 2024 regarding notice of motion, public houses, planning advice note and future planning policy changes. I invite Councillor Coucher, portfolio holder for planning and economic development, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful to those that brought this notice of motion to the Council, and I'm particularly indebted to the joint chairs of the Working Party, Councillor Littlewood and Councillor Johnson, who've worked hard on this, on really looking at our policy in relation to public houses. Many of our communities of community interest facilities within the district are under threat, particularly when people can actually make money out of converting them into houses or into other facilities. So we have to make sure that our policies are as robust as they possibly can be to try and protect those facilities. Pubs in particular, very often the only facility in particular villages and communities, and extraordinarily important in terms of sustaining community cohesion, are given protection. So what we have done here is to ensure that we do not see our pubs perhaps be allowed to fall into disrepair or be uneconomic entities, and therefore there become an overwhelming case for them being converted for other purposes. And we've ensured that there will be some very, very clear sequential tests that will have to be gone through before that happens, and that will all be protected within the new emerging South Warwickshire local plan to make sure that this is a coherent policy coming forward to protect these very valuable and valued facilities for us. So we do have a recommendation in front of us, which is coming forward as a result of the hard work undertaken by the Working Party. That recommendation to this council says that the Public House Planning Advice Note be approved for publication, subject to the amendment as detailed in the preamble above, and that the development of new local planning policy for consultation, which strengthens the protection of public houses in the district, be endorsed. And I would recommend that to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. May I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. Would you like to speak on it?
I'd like to speak. Thank you, Chair. As the co-chair of this group, and Councillor Littlewood and I think managed to achieve a result in some degree of collaboration. I would like to commend the report to the Council. Pubs are an important part of the social fabric of our communities, and action must be taken if there is risk. The nature of the property market is such that the site value of local businesses too often exceeds the value of the going concern, so the pressure is on. So I'd commend the planning advisory note to the Council and thank the contribution and hard work of the staff involved.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Coucher for his recognition of the hard work that the whole of the group put into this. And I want to emphasise the excellent support that was given to the group by the officers. I think it was exceptional. I'm delighted that this has gone through. This was a motion, well, this was an item recommended by Councillor Sarah Wally Hoggins, who's obviously given her apologies today. And this is going to make a significant difference to a lot of the businesses within the whole of the district, not just in rural areas where these are community assets of great value and centres for social cohesion, but also, as Councillor Orcott brought to everybody's attention, also in the urban areas as well. In fact, it's part of our culture that we have such centres. So I'm pleased that this has been accepted by the council, and the document will become part of a recommendation in planning decisions. However, we are coming to a point where the South Warwickshire local plan is emerging, and I would like to emphasise that the this document needs to be strengthened. It needs to be become more robust, and it needs to be protected under the new local plan. And we do not wish it to see any dilution whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have anybody else wishes to speak? Do we have agreement? Okay. Thank you, councillors. Item 11 on the agenda is minute 45 from the Cabinet meeting held on the 3rd of June 2024 regarding notice of motion, development in the floodplain. I invite Councillor Coucher, portfolio holder of Planning and Economic Development, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Another notice of motion came forward to this council by Councillor Procedural and also from Councillor Rolfe, who is here today. And I'm very grateful to them bringing forward this. This is a matter of great concern within this district. John Careford in his office, our Chief Planning Officer, had a wonderful map up on the wall which showed just how much of the district is actually in floodplain. And you realise how serious an issue this is, not just for Stratford, but for many other communities actually within the district. And the protection of the floodplain is extremely important in these days when we're seeing flooding happen at a rather more regular basis than it has happened in the past. The Cabinet considered this matter a great deal last week, and we have accepted in total the recommendation which was put forward as a result of the notice of motion. However, there is a slight amendment to the recommendation to make sure that we are tying in our policies into our core strategy, and also that we are taking into account the National Planning Policy Guidance as well. So you have on your desk, I think, a new proposed amendment to the recommendation that I would like to move this afternoon indeed. And that, I'll just read it out, that amendment is to refuse development on the functional floodplain unless the sequential and exceptional tests set out in the core strategy and in the National Planning Policy Framework have been properly followed and adequate evidence provided to the Environment Agency and or the LLFA. I would recommend that amendment to this council.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. May I call for a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. Do you wish to speak now?
I do, thank you, Chair. As was mentioned, Councillor Pertigella was the proposer of the original motion, and she is unable to be here today to speak on this motion, as she's down at Westminster signing in as our new MP for Stratford-on-Avon. I'll stop the politics now. I originally seconded this motion, therefore I would like to say a few words. A large part of my ward has the River Avon running alongside it, and I can see firsthand how fluvial, surface water and sewage flooding impacts hugely on our communities. I was delighted that the Cabinet accepted the motion. If the motion is passed, it will give officers and councillors full backing for strengthening our flood-related policies in the emerging local plan. Councillor Pertigella and I are pleased that the motion is supported by the officers and by Cabinet. For example, to lobby the Environmental Agency to update their 2010 evidence base for flooding, given the serious changing circumstances in the climate and weather patterns. Also to continue to make the case for natural flood management upstream of flood areas. And it is absolutely necessary that this council supports the request for an urgent risk assessment for the Clopton Bridge, including an up-to-date modelling on any catastrophic emergency scenario. We want robust flooding policies embedded in the South Warwickshire local plan because of climate change and increased flooding events. We believe that the local plan advisory group can look at definition of development and what type of development can or cannot be allowed in the floodplain. We would hope that the council could even commission up-to-date flood maps alongside an updated flood risk assessment for the district. Our planners are not flooding experts and have to rely on the Environmental Agency to comment. It is not a statutory requirement for the Environmental Agency to comment on developments of less than 9 houses. This needs to be looked at also by the working group. The cumulative effect of 1 to 8 houses being agreed and 6 months later or 6 months or so later, another 1 to 8 houses being agreed in the same area can and will be problematic. As you know, our planning system allows only deliberating on the planning application before them. So we urge you all to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roth. Any other speakers? Councillor Junid.
I represent a ward in the town of Ulster. And this is a town that heavily depends upon flood defences to keep it safe, and as which suffered major flooding events in 1998 and 2007. And the flood defences came close to being breached more than several times. I think it was 6 times this last winter. Sir Michael Pitt was asked by the government to conduct a thorough and independent review of the flooding emergency that took place in June and July 2007. And he came forward with recommendations on what might be done differently. I gave evidence to the Pitt review and was pleased when the current arrangements for the flood risk management were set out in the Flood and Water Management 2010 was significantly shaped by that Pitt review. However, there's still more that needs to be done if we are to protect communities. This motion sought to emphasise the importance of using the sequential and exception tests set out in the MPPF, fully to protect residents by ensuring that developments do not occur in the recognised floodplain. And I support the amendment because we do need to make sure that the core strategy is upheld. But we do need to take forward the whole idea of the increased risk of flooding, because we need to work more closely with a lot of our partners in the years to come, because not only flood defences, but also natural flood risk management and investment in drainage systems and the recognition of the responsibility to ensure that future developments are sustainable, do not increase flood risk to any site on or the surrounding area, and do not cause additional risk to those living downstream. We need to work more closely with the County Council. As we've heard this morning, there are concerns being raised, particularly on infrastructure such as the Clopton Bridge in Stratford. But I might also raise the questions that I've had over the last winter on the flood defence bunds in Ulster, the drainage in Colton and Great Olne, the natural flood management systems in Shipston, Wellesbourne and Walton, and many other parishes. We do need to work closely across the whole district on not only natural flood management, flood defences, but also making sure that we do not have inappropriate flood development in floodplains, and that we work closely with our partners to look for, to make sure that our residents are fully protected in years to come. This is not something that is to be taken lightly. It is something that's going to need a lot of work going forward, but I do urge people to do it rapidly, not take too long to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Junod. Councillor Rock.
Thank you, Chair. As joint chair of the South Warwickshire Local Plan Advisory Group, I'm listening carefully to the points that have been made, and I think it's fair to say that the other members of that group that are in this room will be doing so as well, and we're taking on board all the messages. In fact, not only on this case, one or two other things have been mentioned about pubs going forward, and I think there's a question about gypsy and travellers later on. All these things are going into the mix, and we're working our way through it. I thought I know a little bit about planning. A plan-making process is a very long, drawn-out process. We'll see how much it gets helped or interfered with by the incoming government. But in this particular case, I fully support this motion. Clearly, the amendments here are to make it very robust against challenges. We know up and down the country, developers do want to challenge where this has been resisted elsewhere. So we do need to keep in mind the things that do go on in planning, where local communities have got the environment in the forefront of their thinking. There are allied matters that come to mind, such as sewage discharges, which are also to do with mixed drainage systems, which we want to try and avoid, and I hope there's going to be something in national legislation about that. But the South Warwickshire Local Plan Group will be listening and has been listening, and will be environmentally led. So I very much support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rock. Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is really positive. Also, I've got the flooding portfolio at the county. Just a couple of things, a bit of pragmatism on this. Natural flood management, yes, it's great, but it's got to be, it won't cure it on its own. It's not the magic bullet. It will need to be with other initiatives as well. And therefore we get best bang for a buck. Somebody once said we needed a whole raft of issues, and I thought, no, that's not quite appropriate for flooding. But we definitely do these things, and obviously working with the landowners and farmers in particular, we can make a difference in terms with other projects as well, capital infrastructure. Just been reading the news today, 1.5 million homes in the course of this Parliament, 300,000 a year for the non-accountants, and it's still 300,000 a year for an accountant as well. So that's going to be a lot of houses to be built. There's no mention of the infrastructure associated with these 300,000 houses. And one of the infrastructures we need is drainage infrastructure that Councillor Rock has just mentioned. So it would be interesting to see whether this has the impact on this policy, whether the NPPF will be overwritten, whether it be subverted. I was going to say submerged, but that's probably not the right one again. Thank you, Mr. Buckland. I always like your nods of disapproval. It makes it worthwhile while coming here. Certainly, I think we've got a lot of work to do on this, and I do feel sorry for the planning team to try and deal with governments, particularly when they've come in with ideas that may impact on our local ideas. So this is the whole point of Councillor Rock being on the South Warwickshire local plan, because it's what local people want. And this is where we have a diversion of what national government wants and local government wants. So I do think we've got a bit of a battle here. All these puns are coming to my mind and I can't say them. No, apart from damned if we do or damned if we don't. But seriously, I think this will help, but it won't cure everything. And I think we've got to lobby government to say where these 1.5 million houses are going to be built, 300,000 a year, and certainly if we've got our ducks in a row, that's not a pun by the way, we've got to make sure we can defend ourselves against the developers who want to, as Councillor Kensher says, want to build in such areas. So I think we've got to have this set in stone as soon as we can. So I'm concerned about the timescale. So if the portfolio holder could give me some indication of timescale when it's likely to go through, that would be helpful as well. So our residents have got some reassurance that the parishes and town councils have got some ammunition in when they are opposing development, inappropriate, what they perceive to be inappropriate development in floodplains. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crump. Does anybody else wish to speak on this motion? No. In that case, we agree that the recommendations as amended, that recommendations noted in the report plus the amendment as outlined by Councillor Coucher are approved. Are we agreed? Thank you. Right. Item 12 on the agenda, minute 93 from the Cabinet meeting held on the 1st of July 2024 regarding Warwickshire Local Council's Charter. I invite Councillor Juned to introduce this item.
Thank you very much indeed. The Warwickshire Local Council's Charter, this is an update of the charter that was in place in 2015. And basically it is about making sure that all the different tiers of local government within the county work together effectively. It's been adopted by the County Council and the other districts in Warwickshire, and now is to be proposed that Stratford District Council adopts the charter as well. And it is to make sure that we are able to improve the communication, consider improving the consultation between each other, giving support and help to each other, and measuring how well each is doing so that we can work together. And so I'm putting it to you all that we adopt the notice of the recommendation that came to the Cabinet, that we adopt the charter to govern the relationship between all tiers of local government in Warwickshire. I said the working group that put this together did involve parish councils, county council, district council, everybody that is involved in this. This is something that will be welcomed by all sectors, so I do hope you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Juned. May I have a seconder? Councillor Alcock.
Thank you.
Do you wish to speak on this item?
No, thank you.
In which case, do we have anybody from the floor who wishes to speak? Councillor Mills.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Parish and town councils have the highest level of local knowledge and understanding of community needs. I'm a great supporter of parish councils. This charter needs to be taken seriously and not just have lip service paid to it. This means that the training and support needs to be of the highest standard to enable parish and town councils to work together with SDC with the knowledge of process, procedure and regulation to work with SDC to assist with efficient local governance. Delegated training of town and parish councils members to an outside body such as Walk, who will deliver in a generic sense, only will waste the opportunity. An example would be planning considerations which require training of the current core strategy and the emerging SWLP. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? In which case, are we agreed that the recommendations noted in the report are approved? Thank you. We now move on to item 13 on the agenda, is a minute 105 from the Audit and Standards Committee meeting held on the 8th of July 2024 regarding... Got papers wrong with that. Regarding procedure and appointment of parish town council representatives. I invite Councillor Alcock to introduce this report as chair.
Thank you, Chair. And with your permission, I'll remain seated if that's all right. Thank you very much. Council, you have the report in front of you. The recommendation to Council is that Trevor Gill, Councillor for Avon Dasset Parish Council, and David Roach, Councillor for Tysoe Parish Council, be appointed as the 2 parish town council representatives on the Audit and Standards Committee until the ordinary district and parish elections to be held in May 2027. I put this recommendation to you.
Thank you, Councillor Alcock. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Keithley. Do you wish to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say that we just heard about the charter from Councillor Mills. I think it's a very welcome addition to the Audit and Standards Committee that we have 2 parish councillors coming on. We want to work closely with parish councils in future, and I'd just like to thank those 2 councillors for putting themselves forward to be nominated to join this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Does anybody... Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add a little bit extra to what Councillor Keithley said, in that I was one of the members of the interviewing panel, and thank all 4 candidates who came forward, because it takes a lot to put yourself forward to the Audit and Standards Committee and present yourself in front of an interviewing panel. So I'm grateful to all 4 that came forward.
Councillor Shenton. Any other people who would like to speak to this item? Thank you. In which case, are we agreed that the recommendations noted in the report are approved? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you. Right, it's item 14, isn't it? Yeah. It's item 14. Yeah. Item 14 on the agenda is minute 106 from the Audit and Standards Committee meeting held on the 8th of July 2024 regarding outside body appointments. I invite Councillor Alcock to introduce this report as chair of this committee.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, again, as tabled, and there are 2 parts of this recommendation. Take them together. It's recommended to Council that Councillor Grocott be appointed as the Council's representative on the patrol, parking and traffic regulations outside London, outside body, Council appointment, and number 2, that the updated outside body schedule to include further appointments now included in the leader statement, the executive appointments, please be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Alcock. Do I have a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Cole. Wish to speak to it? Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? In which case, we have a proposer and a seconder. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Right. Item 15 on the agenda, Councillor questions. Question 1, Councillor Harvey. Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Chairman. In the absence of the portfolio holder, I think it would be inappropriate for me to ask a supplementary question at this stage, but I happily have a go at question 2.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. We move on to question 2. Councillor Harvey, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Chairman. I do. The question of gypsies and travellers and finding pictures, suitable pictures for them, is an intractable problem in my view, although I do agree with Councillor Coucher that we have to find a solution. Many of our residents live in fear on bank holidays. I think there's a need to allay those fears, if at all possible.
The previous administration made an attempt to find pictures by calling for sites to be put forward and assessed. That proved to be a pointless exercise. It yielded nothing. My fear is that either if that exercise is repeated, it'll have the same sort of result, or, and I hesitate to use this phrase of kicking a can down the road, but if it's left to the South Warwickshire local plan, that won't be adopted until 2027 at the earliest on current timescales, and that timescale could slip. So we face the prospect of at least 3 years unless fortune changes. And fortune has changed. Fortune has changed by reference to the previous question in the windfall income that the council has already received and, in my view, is likely to receive over the next 3 years. So the question of finding sites seems to me to revolve around 2 issues. One is the money to be available in order to buy sites? And I think the answer to that is increasingly yes. And secondly, is there a political will to take on the challenge of finding sites? Now, that is a matter for the administration. What I would suggest is that officers are asked to find sites, deliberately find sites, regardless of who owns them or where they are, because acceptable sites have to meet certain criteria about access to public transport and education.
Excuse me, Councillor Harvey, may we come to the question, please?
I will, quite happily. Will the council ask officers deliberately to find sites that are suitable for gypsies and travellers and show people and bring them forward on the basis that the money to do so is available, whether that has to be done, whether it can be done by negotiation, or indeed if compulsory purchase has to be resorted to? Is there the will to do that?
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Archer to answer.
Thank you, Chair. The Council mentions gypsy sites, which is probably one of the most emotive things that we have to deal with. We are dealing with it in the local plan advisory group, and in fact we had a paper come to our last meeting associated with this. We will be, as part of the plan making process, coming forward with preferred options towards the end of this year. And I think clearly finding gypsy sites needs to be part of that particular process, because there is a number of things that the local plan has to accommodate, and gypsies are certainly one of them. One of the concerns that I've got is that the previous administration cut the out-of-hours service that used to be available at bank holidays and weekends, which has meant that we have had problems of incursions onto land during those periods of time. I'm hoping that with the reorganisation of the planning department that we're dealing with at the moment, that we can reinstate that service so that people in rural areas are not threatened in this way, and also have recourse to resource to actually rectify those problems. We in Wellesbourne have been victims of that. And I know other communities have as well. This is something that this administration is looking about repairing, this damage that was done previously.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. Question 3, Councillor Parker. Do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do. Just briefly, the answer kindly from Councillor Coucher refers to the work that I've done previously with the planning officer, Richard Gardner, and we have made some tinkering around the edges, and it comes to mind when we look at the planning process that ultimately this is a bureaucratic organisation, and so we are measured on our ability to do bureaucracy, and I'd like us to do bureaucracy well. My question is very simply, Councillor Coucher, I remain at your disposal should you wish me to help with this process. I am very, very keen, and I would push upon, impress upon all councillors here to have a look at planning in your area and just realise how broken all the dates are. And the notion of giving out incorrect dates is beyond me, frankly. Thank you very much.
Councillor Coucher to respond.
Yes, I'm fully aware of certain deficiencies that there are certainly in the planning service, and that these are the things that we are trying to deal with as part of the review. But I'm particularly in relation to consultations and times for receiving representations. These are key matters because we do want to work very closely with town and parish councils and indeed with individual representations, but we have to do it in a timely fashion to ensure that we've got a good structure to that. So yes, this is a process that is ongoing, and I believe there is an away day tomorrow of the planning staff that will be looking at the new systems, and I will be hopefully able to report back to you on hopefully improving situation. But I know you will be keeping your eye very closely on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. Question 4, Councillor Shenton. Supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. I thank the portfolio holder for responding to this. However, I do feel that in your response, what you've actually done is just, if you like, rehash what I'd said beforehand, which is about the Croft car park, and SDC obviously have no control over that. The issue is getting worse. We have lots of residents, not just in my area, in Councillor Holmes' area, Councillor Rice's area, that are having trouble parking in this car park. We own this car park. The problem is ours. It's not the JPC at Henley. It's ours. It's our problem. It's not cross organisation. So I would ask that you look at this sooner rather than later. You say in the near future, so my question is very simple. Can we say that near future is less than 3 months?
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Councillor Grocott.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Shenton. Yes, indeed. I mean, since we took this administration took over last year, myself as portfolio holder, and Councillor Rice, our fellow portfolio cabinet member, who is the ward member for Henley, have been looking very closely at the issues because we have also received, well, Councillor Rice has received complaints, and we have been working very hard to improve the painting and the signage moving forward. Unfortunately, this is a free car park and we cannot adjudicate who gets there. So we will have to look at, just give a chance to hear. So we are looking at this on an ongoing phase, and we will, moving forward, we will be looking with the portfolio again, the SERDA service, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible to move this issue on, because it doesn't just affect you as a county councillor, it affects my colleagues, Councillor Rice's ward, Councillor Holmes's ward, and yours as well. Thank you. Oh, sorry, and Warwick. Yes, I know. Thank you.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is Councillor Shenton. Do you have a supplementary?
Very quick one, this one, yes. So you mentioned, once again, thank you for this. I think it's welcome to see the numbers at last. You mentioned campaign initiatives. Can you highlight some of the initiatives and campaigns that the council is currently running, as you've indicated in your response that there are some running?
Again, thank you very much, Councillor Shenton, for your question. And like yourself, I've developed a very unhealthy interest in all things to do with refuse collections and fly tipping. Unfortunately, with fly tipping, it is an antisocial issue, a behavioural issue, and it's one that we need to be looking at as like prevention, because being in such a large district, people know that they can come and deposit items and then get away, because we cannot have eyes on every lay-by, every sort of grass verge. So what we need to do is educate people to make sure they realise the implications. And also, it's a case of that people can come from outside the district to deposit their fly tipping in our area. Formerly, it used to be commercial waste, which was the biggest issue of fly tipping, but I think the fact that we did have people coming, our officers looking into this, and you could see sort of that there was a company identifiers on this has caused us to reduce that. Now it is household items, so we do need to look at that. Moving forward, we are, as you're aware, there are challenges in the team at the moment, so we will be looking at that in more detail going forward, but as I say, it will be looking at the behavioural rather than chasing around penalising. We do put CCTV on certain black areas, so we will be looking at pursuing that in more rigour going forward. And as I say, we just need to make sure that this is addressed further going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grocott. That finishes the written questions. May I now move to item 16, which is questions to the leader. Do I have people wishing? Councillor Passingham. Oh, sorry, I just have to read something out first, sorry. I'm new at this job, I will get better at it, I promise. Note that up to 30 minutes will be allowed for questions, with each councillor permitted to speak for no more than 3 minutes, and may ask no more than 2 questions each. Due to the time constraint, please keep your questions concise. Please note for the duration of this item, I will be taking the order of the questions sequentially by political balance. Okay, so it's Councillor Passington was the first. I think Councillor Grocott was the second.
Thank you. First of all, on behalf of the Green Group of councillors, I'd like to give our congratulations to Manuela Bertigella for her election, a stunning victory in the election on Thursday, and wish her the best of luck in Parliament, and looking forward to having her represent us. My question, or our question, is about No Mow May. The Green Group welcomes the introduction of No Mow May and the less intensive mowing regime on verges and open spaces. It's a small but very important step towards restoring nature in the district. But there have been quite a few teething problems in areas that I represent, and in particular, after the flush of growth during May, the first mow produces a massive cuttings that completely blank out the grass and any wildflowers that are left there, and which counters the intention of No Mow May, when we should be trying to encourage wildflowers not just in May but throughout the year. I'm involved in quite a network of environmental groups, and we've been discussing improvements to this, and various suggestions have come forward, which I'll forward on to the relevant officers. But my question then is, will the leader consider adjustments to No Mow May to improve it, taking into account the good intentions of it, but it does need some adjustment, I think?
The answer to that is yes. The No Mow May, it was something that was brought forward by the organisation called Plant Life that has quite a lot of experience. This was the first time it's been done. There was exceptional weather this year with an awful lot more rain than normal, but the lessons will be learned because it's something that we support and we want it to be successful. So if there isn't any need for any adjustments, we will make sure that the officers take that on board, and that we do have a successful No Mow May, and that there are no further teething problems in future years. Thank you.
Thank you. May I call on Councillor Grocott for the next question?
Right. Thank you, Chair. Leader, I'm sure you're pleased to recognise that we now have the first female MP for Stratford-on-Avon, our very own Liberal Democrat, Manuela Bertigella. I'm sure that Stratford District Council already has great representation for women on in this council chamber. We have leader, chair, leader of the opposition normally. It shows the progressive outlook of every party in this district. However, it's also worth noting that the Honourable Manuela Pertigella is also a diligent and engaged district councillor with good knowledge of local issues in Stratford-upon-Avon. As such, would the leader be able to tell me how she will engage with our local MP to improve our relationship with central government and represent the needs of Stratford-on-Avon residents in Westminster? Thank you.
I would be most happy to engage on a regular basis. I believe it has been the custom in the past to have a regular update from the MP on a Friday, I believe. We will most certainly take that up. It is something that, if you look at the column that will be in this next week's Herald, is something that we will want to engage with her on, because we want to be able to put the case forward for local government in general, to make sure that we get what Local Government Association wants across the board, which is a parity of esteem for local government, but also that we get are able to put forward the representation from residents in this area, from businesses in this area, from the educational sector in this area, for all the other sectors of this area, the parish councils, etc., to make sure that our voice is well heard in the Palace of Westminster. We will definitely be engaging with her on a very regular basis to make sure that our voice is heard. Thank you.
May I call on Councillor Littlewood, please, for the next question?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we also would like to offer our congratulations to Councillor, ex-Councillor, MP, Manuela Pertigella.
Thank you.
And now that the
she's still a councillor and will be until she moves on.
Well, that's part of my next question.
I apologise.
Thank you. And as I was about to say, now that the long-standing campaign that she conducted will no longer defocus this administration, I hope that we can focus on the control and development going forward of this council. Now, as a supplementary comment to that, when will the by-election be, please?
No, there is no by-election to be held as yet. We will have to. We don't want to put so much burden on our staff quite at this moment. No, there are different MPs across the country. Some who have continued as councillors. Some who have. I think the Warwick councillor, the Warwick MP, actually took 6 months. But it is up to the particular councillor to declare when she wants to stop being a councillor. But at the same time, we do not want to get our staff fully engaged in yet another election right after the general election. It will be up to the Member of Parliament concerned as to when she wants to stand down.
Councillor Alcock is next.
Thank you, Leader. Leader, residents in Stratford are very concerned that the rise of antisocial behaviour and, more worryingly, serious knife crime that has been reported in the town recently has seemingly had no effect on the number of police seen in the town. Would the Leader please support me in writing a letter to the Police Crime Commissioner asking when he will provide the additional police support as mentioned in his election material? Thank you.
I'd be glad to make sure that our concerns are raised. We already have raised those concerns. We've had a couple of meetings with the police recently. One where we were told about that there is funding for additional antisocial behaviour patrols in the town, which are already taking place in specific areas, but we need to get more information on that, exactly what is happening, and keep the flow of information going between ourselves and the police. The police also informed us about Operation Talkative. This was the police inspector with regard to knife crime. we were recently updated on this by the police, and our cabinet member, Councillor Gist, has been updated on that and can send more information around. The public spaces protection orders, the public consultation recently concluded and is going through the formal process at the moment to put the protocols in place. There is a link on the District Council website for residents to report antisocial behaviour, and they're encouraged to do this, but also to make sure that they report it to the police. One of the things that we want to do is the community safety team here at the District Council have been extremely well involved, but are also updating. And one of the things that I've asked the community safety team person in charge when he comes back from his holiday is that there should be a briefing for ward members and that those ward members that are affected in the particular wards, that they should make sure that they share that with the residents that are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. May I call on Councillor Fleming?
Thank you, Chair. As a member of the Planning Committee, there's some slight things that don't quite gel with me and one or two others. Does the policy on self-build need a review when 16 houses custom build on 5 acres in a local service village at £1.1 million a plot gets approved, yet a family farm where a hovel exists and a self-build refusal because the footprint was slightly bigger than the one down dilapidated structure that's there? I just find that an incongruous thing, and I know that you're still developing the self-build policy. Is that something that should be addressed when you actually do that?
This is something that I will make sure that the Cabinet Member for Planning takes up, because we do need to make sure that the self-build and custom build report, which was originally chaired by Councillor Rock, is kept up to date, and that those considerations are taken on board in the South Warwickshire Local Plan. We also need to make sure that there are representations made to Westminster. Again, as planning rules and planning is changed at Westminster, then we need to make sure that those kind of things that are happening with the custom and self-build are taken into consideration, because it does need to be issues that need to be addressed there.
Councillor Petrovic, your question next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, as one of many young professionals living in the district who also regularly commute for work to cities across the country and who wants to reduce their carbon footprint, I'm concerned about the current state of rail services across the district. Our district no longer has direct train connection to London, and there is a notable absence of stations in the eastern part of the district, particularly between Banbury and Leamington, despite ongoing development in those areas. Could you please tell us what is being done to ensure robust and efficient rail connectivity for our district, which is crucial for supporting our growing population and promoting sustainable travel solutions? Thank you.
I thank the councillor for this. As somebody who uses the trains fairly regularly to London myself, but of course now that we have our MP who does use the trains regularly, she will be going down to London on a regular basis from Stratford-on-Avon, and she'll be able to raise this. But we work closely with Warwickshire County Council, which is the Strategic Transport Planning Authority. They have prepared their 4th reiteration of the local transport plan, and we have responded to it. But that is a high-level strategic document. And as we move forward in the South Warwickshire local plan, we need to consider the role of trains in our district and the role of making it easier for commuters. But it does need a major infrastructure funding agreement from government as well. We do need to make sure that, for example, that those people that are coming to the Royal Shakespeare Company Theatre can actually use trains on their way home afterwards, as well as people that want to be able to commute to London regularly for work and other recreation reasons.
May I ask Councillor Harding for the next question?
Thank you, Chair. Slightly similar question, actually. The Stratford Transport Group has put forward a number of proposals. Could I ask how you're dealing with those proposals? And likewise, what work is being done to ensure that Stratford is better connected and has more sustainable transport for our residents in future? And as a supplementary, if I may, has the County Council given us any date for the reopening of the A439 Warwick Road? My residents are particularly concerned because they can't get out.
I have no date at the moment because that is a matter of the county, but we have made, at our request, we actually have arranged a meeting with the County Council on the 6th of August to look at and to talk about a whole range of transport issues. Not only you know, the issues that you've raised, and we can make sure that we do take up, because Councillor Coucher will be present, and he's already making a note and will raise the Warwick Road at your request. Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask Councillor Crump for his question?
Thank you, Chair. My question prompted me to raise this question. Obviously, after a delay of a month, has the council or the contractors got the capacity, equipment and resources to undertake the cutting as quickly as they can, particularly when this year the grass was somewhere between 30 and 90 centimetres high? Some of my ward didn't receive a cut till the end of January, that was a long way, the end of June or the start of July. So they almost had a no-mow May and a no-mow June. So 2 months. Well, I'm sure Councillor Passingham would be pleased with that. Not sure some of my residents, particularly those with hay fever like myself, or dog walkers who are having trouble with poop scooping once the grass got a bit too long, would be particularly happy about that. So do we need to be clearer with residents about timescales after the grass cutting hiatus? And I'd also like to see some coordination between the grass cutting and road and street sweeping, because often the cuttings blow into the road, particularly at the side of the road where there's drains. The drains get blocked, we have some heavy rains like we've had the last few days, and then all of a sudden we've got highways flooding. So therefore we've got implications with road safety as well. So just a question, so just, you know, capacity, communication and coordination. So three in one there, all begin with C, from Councillor Crump.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Crump, for your 3 C's by the Council with us, beginning with C. I'm beginning to kind of catch some of your aside jokes. No, there was, it is something that I want to raise with officers. There was actually considerable exceptional rainfall, and that has already been raised with the council officers. It did slow down some of the cutting because of the exceptional rain. But this is a new contractor that was taken on this year, and it is something that has already been raised with officers and the portfolio holder, and has already had discussions on it. So we take on board those. We do need to make sure that there is a good service offered to residents. Thank you. And your point taken about the road sleeping as well. We will take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask Councillor Adam for his question? Oh, thank you. So I'll move on to Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. Caught me by surprise there. The launch of the 123 Plus system, and in particular the food waste system in August 22, has proven to be a success and ahead of the government plans to make the weekly collection of food waste mandatory for all local authorities by 2026. Taking a leaf out of Councillor Coucher's playbook here, I'm going to say that this foresight by the Conservative Party on this side of the chamber ensured that we as an authority procured the food caddies and the best possible price at a time when supply was greater than demand. and the cost was obviously kept down. In March of this year, the government highlighted that more than 10 million tonnes of food is wasted every year in the UK, much of which is sent to landfill. Claire Shrewsbury from the waste reduction body WRAP, and I know you know the organisation as well as I do, said weekly food waste collections will give recycling in England an important boost and help reduce the impact of food waste on climate change. Our research shows that when food waste collections are introduced, people see how much food waste is going, how much food is going to waste, and they want to do something about it. Food waste, on average, costs a householder for around £1,000 a year. So for weekly collections not only help to prevent food waste in the first place, but utilise the food waste collected to generate green energy and compost, which we do. So, I'm sure you'll agree, therefore, Councillor Junid, that given how important it is to avoid food waste, and that food waste that residents have is placed in the food waste caddy and presented at curbside each week, could you therefore bring forward a report within the next, say, 3 weeks, or if you can give us some idea of when this might happen, to give in all members here the certified volume of food waste over the last 12 months compared with the previous year on a pro rata basis, if need be, and also the number of households that are using the food waste collection service. I think it's essential that we show how, this in as positive a light as possible, and if we need to do more, we will be able to see from those simple stats what we need to do going forward. So thank you very much.
Yes, I believe some of the data will be already being put together, particularly about the number of households that are using. But I'm happy to make sure that we look at the volume. In my one of my previous jobs, I did actually have an input into one of the DEFRA resource strategies, not the current one, but I think the one before. And I did make the point at that time about the need for food waste collections, and I'm glad to see it's coming. I hope that food waste isn't food is not going to landfill, because that does cost a lot with the landfill tax in place. So we do need to make sure that it is properly collected, and I hope that I believe that all local authorities still have quite an input and able to take information from WRAP about the campaigns, and I believe we do here at Stratford as well. But it's one of the things that we need to make sure that we keep that communication, we keep the information flow, the education flow going, in order that more and more households are able to take account and know why they're doing what they do. It certainly has a considerable impact on our carbon footprint if we're able to collect food waste. And I'm hoping that with the new government that they'll be looking at that the new resource strategy, and looking at whether or not more needs to be done. Thank you.
My final question, Councillor Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier in the year, there was a lot of support in this room for our budget amendment to increase council tax on second homes, and we were wondering what progress has been made on that.
We asked the portfolio holder to engage with the county council, because one of the key things is that if any such council tax is collected, then it is collected on behalf of both the district council and the county council, and the majority of it would go to the county council. And we do feel it's important that any extra money, such funds, are kept as much as possible within the district council. So this is part of talks with the county council. But also, I believe that there are changes, there have been changes at a government level, so we want to make sure that we are looking closely. And with a new government in place, we also want to make sure that we're checking that new government wants to do on that thing. But it is something that we have been, the portfolio holder, I asked the portfolio holder to have negotiations with the, or talks with the county council or the section 151 officer to have talks with the county council on what their stance would be on this. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the final question I have on my list. Does anybody else wish to ask a question before we move on? Okay. Item 17, which is notice of motion update, which is... Oh, it's for information only. Okay, so I move on to item 18, motions of notice. Motions of notice, we have one motion of notice in accordance with council procedure rules. Once proposed and seconded, the motion will be referred to the Cabinet for consideration and report without debate. I invite Councillor Fleming to propose the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I propose the motion as it's been written, and happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I invite Councillor Scorer to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's just thank you. I'm learning. So we move on to the final item, item 19, which is urgent business. I have no urgent business. Therefore, being no further business, I declare the council meeting to be closed. Not bad. 2 hours, 45 minutes.